Hello everyone, this is lesson 9.1, graph quadratic equations in standard form. So today you did an investigation into unit 9 on the quadratic equations, and these are the different lessons that we're going to be covering in unit 9. So we're going to learn how to graph quadratic equations in different forms, learn how to solve equations by graphing and using your graphing calculator, learning how to take the square roots to solve, and then also completing the square and quadratic formula. We might save that for after air though, just so that we have time to practice for the air testing in April. So, where are my slides? Hold on guys, let me try opening that again. So in the investigation activity, you learned that when you've got the equation y equals ax squared, it's a parabola and it either opens up or it opens down. So if the leading coefficient is positive, it's going to open up. So if a is positive, and I like to think about it because it's like a smiley face. Okay, so it's positive, smiling, and if it's opening down, it's a frowny face, and it's negative, so the a would be negative. All right, so also this one would have a minimum value, and it doesn't have a maximum value because it keeps going up forever in both directions. And this one has a maximum value with no minimum value. All right, and also there's symmetry. So whatever numbers you have over here for the y values are the same as over here. All right, so you already did this investigation activity and you did the matching. If you struggled with those, I will post a video later on how to do these questions, so make sure you go back and look at the video and try it again if you don't get it right the first couple times. So next up, and also I'm going to be posting the lesson notes in the folder of the day that the edge elastic was assigned. So if this was assigned on Monday due Tuesday, then the notes will be in Monday's folder. So you can print them out if you're an e-learner if you want, or you can just take notes on graph paper. So here we've got an equation. The quadratic equations are in standard form are y equals ax squared plus bx plus c. So these are important. A is your quadratic term, b is your linear term, c is your constant, and that should look familiar to you. Okay, we've done something like that before. Sometimes you won't have a bx, sometimes you won't have a c, just depends on what you have, will depend on how you solve it and graph it. So the graph of a quadratic equation is also called a parabola. The parent function for the family of all quadratic functions is y equals x squared. So your parent function, your basic function, y equals x squared, which is shown below, or f of x equals x squared, same thing. So the graph of y equals x squared is shown below. So here, if you were to do like xy chart, go -1, 0, 1. At -1, if you plug in -1 for x squared, -1 times -1 is +1, 0 squared is 0, and 1 squared is 1. So you would plot the vertex first, and then 1 point over at 1, 1, and then 1 point to the left at -1, 1. So it says the lowest or highest point on the parabola is called the vertex, which you learned in the investigation activity. The vertex of this equation is the point 1, 1. You always write your vertex as a coordinate. And then the axis of symmetry divides the parabola into mirror images and passes through the vertex. So here your axis of symmetry is always a vertical line in this case. And vertical lines have the form x equals some number, whatever the number is that it passes through. So here in this case, this axis of symmetry line would be x equals 0 because it passes through 0. All right, so don't get confused. The y-axis, the equation of the y-axis is x equals 0 for a vertical line. So we'll definitely be doing some practice on that. So the equation for the axis of symmetry is x equals 0, what I just talked about. That number is the x coordinate of the vertex. Okay, So talking about graphing. To graph any quadratic function, you first plot the vertex. And if the function is in standard form, there's a way that you can find the vertex without using your calculator. It's the equation x equals negative b over 2a. This is a very important little formula that you'll need to know, where b is the linear term coefficient and a is the leading coefficient. So we'll do some practice with that. Plot the y-intercept or find a point to the right of the vertex. So if there's a y-intercept, then you can plot it, which is the c, and then find the y-intercept is the c, and then find a mirror point of the point you found in step 2. So whatever point you found in step 2, plot it on the other side of the axis of symmetry. So you should get at least 3 points. Now in edge elastic, you only have to use 2 points, but it is nice to recognize that there are 3 points. And then connect it in a U shape, or if you're doing it on paper. Okay. And then here, just once again, this kind of tells what you already know. Graph opens up if A is positive, opens down if A is negative. If A is greater than 1, then the graph is stretched. So remember how if you had 4x squared, that was steeper than, say, 2x squared. And then if you had 1/2 x squared, that was steeper than 1/4 x squared. 1/4 x squared was very wide. And then if A is between 0 and 1, then the graph shrinks. So it gets wider. B, we haven't talked about B too much. It causes a horizontal translation. So makes the graph go left or right. And that's determined by the axis of symmetry. So the axis of symmetry will move to the right or left depending on what B is, what B and A are. Okay, so the vertex has an x-coordinate of negative b over 2a, y-intercept is c, so 0c is on the parabola. Okay, so let's do an example here, 2x squared minus 8x plus 6. So let's practice graphing this. Hopefully you have your graph paper. So the first step is to find your axis of symmetry. So x equals negative b over 2a. I'm going to set up negative fraction bar. The b in this case is negative 8. And then we have 2 times a, which is 2. So like the first thing you might want to notice is the amount of negative signs. Since there are 2 negative signs, they will cancel. And then you'll have 8 over, simplify the denominator. So you get 2 for your axis of symmetry. So 2, x equals 2. I'm going to go ahead and draw it. Make sure you draw with a straight edge. Okay, so then next is we would plot a point to the left or the right of the vertex. So actually we'll have to figure out what happens if you plug in 2 and for x. So we'll do 2 times 2 squared minus 8 times 2 plus 6. So if we simplify here, we get 2 squared is 4, 2 times 4 is 8, minus 16 plus 6. This would be negative 8 plus 6, which is negative 2. So your vertex is at 2, negative 2. So 2, negative 2. Now since the leading coefficient is positive, then the parabola is going to open up. So what would be the y-intercept? Well, if we plugged in 0 for x, we would end up with 6. So 0, 6 would be the y-intercept. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, which means you also have 6 on the other side. So if 6 is 2 away from the axis of symmetry, then it's the same on the other side, 2 away. And then you would kind of just connect your dots like that. Parabolas are kind of tricky to draw. All right, so something like that. And so just another reiteration of the minimum and maximum. So you've got your minimum and then your maximum. So your minimum is if its parabola is opening up, maximum if parabola is opening down. Okay, so let's do some practice with graphing. So hopefully you have your your graph paper. You also need your calculator. We're going to learn how to do this with our calculator. So for number 1, you have x squared minus 1. So let's find the axis of symmetry, and then we'll use our graphing calculator to get additional points. So your axis of symmetry is negative b over 2a. But the problem here is that there actually is no b. You've got x squared, and then you've got the c term. So if it's 0 over 2 times a, which would be 1, then your axis of symmetry is just 0. So then if you plugged in 0 for x, what would you get for y? You get negative 1. So 0, negative 1 is your vertex point, and it's your axis of symmetry. So 0, negative 1. And you also learned that this last value here, if there is no middle term, the last value will determine what your vertex point is. Okay, so now let's get out our graphing calculator, and let's, in our y equals, type in x squared minus 1. I'm going to show you how to find the vertex, and then how to, the only problem though is that if the vertex is like a fraction, it won't show up in your calculator. So you do still need to know how to use x equals negative b over 2a. You still want to do that first, but then you can use your graphing calculator to get more points, save you some time. So in my y equals, clear whatever's there. You might want to turn the plot off. So if it's highlighted, you want to go up and press enter to unhighlight it, and then do x squared. Your squared button is right here, x squared minus 1. So what we're going to do is we're going to go to the table, which is found by doing second graph. So I already know that my vertex is at 0, and if you look, you should be able to see the symmetry. So if it's 0, 1, negative 1, it's 0 on both sides, and it's 3 on both sides, and it's 8 on both sides. If it's not like that, then you know you either typed it in wrong, or the vertex is in between the numbers, so it's a fraction. Okay, so the next point over we would need to plot, which would be 0. So at 1 and negative 1, it's at 0. And then at 2 and negative 2, it's at 3. And then at 3 and negative 3, it's at 8. So we're going to plot all of those points. Okay, so at 1, we're at 0. At 2, we said we were at 3. 1, 2, 3. So 3 over that side. And then at 3, we're up at 8. So that's, if you wanted to plot as many points as you could, that's how you would do it. That's traditionally how we would graph these types of equations. With Elastic, they just make it simpler. Okay, so negative x squared plus 4. So here, if you wanted to find the axis of symmetry, you do negative b over 2a, but here b is 0. So you just get 0. So x equals 0, which means the vertex is just going to be 0, 4. So plot 0, 4. And then this parabola, since it's negative, is going to be opening down. So let's type it into our calculator. Negative x squared minus 4. Oh, sorry, plus 4. Okay, go to your table. Go to the vertex that you found at 0, and then it's 3, 0, and then negative 5 on the other sides. So 3, 0, and then negative 5. Negative 5, negative 5. And connect your points. And this, it's like baseball, where you want to like look at what you're aiming for. That might help you with the coordination. Okay, and notice that my arrows, I'm not making them go like straight down or back inwards. They keep going out a little bit. Okie doke. Let's do a few more complicated ones. How about this one? X equals negative b over 2a, so negative 6 over 2 times a, which is 1. So this would simplify to negative 6 over 2, which is negative 3. So my vertex point is at negative 3. So at this point, I'm going to go ahead and type this into my y equals. I'm just going to use my table to figure out what the y coordinate is instead of plugging in negative 3 by hand. So x squared plus 6x plus 8, and then do second table. So I'm going to go to negative 3. Actually, I'm going to go up a little bit and then back so I can see the symmetry. So negative 3 is at negative 1. And then we go 0, 3, and 8. So your vertex is at negative 3, negative 1. The parabola should open up since it's positive. And we said, what, 0, 3, and 8? So 0, 3, and 8 on that side, and then 0, 3, and 8 again on that side. Oh boy, that's not the best looking graph. Hope your graph looks better than mine. It really should not cross like that. It should go, because see how if I make it like this, it technically crosses here, but it only doesn't cross until you get to 8. So I would take points off for that. So you want to go steeper until you get to 8. And same with this one. You don't want to cross here at 6. You want to go steeper until you get to 8. Okay, so I suppose we'll do one more here. So here we have x equals, let's find the vertex point first, negative b, which is negative 2, over 2 times a, which is negative 1. Now careful, let's look at our signs. You've got 3 negative signs here, which means 2 are going to cancel and 1 is going to stay. So you'll have negative 2 over 2, which is negative 1. So your vertex point is negative 1, comma, and then let's do the same thing, plug it into your y equals to see what that y value of the vertex is and your symmetry points. So negative x squared minus 2x plus 3. Okay, so here if I scroll down to negative 1, we're at 4. So you go 4, 3, 0, negative 5. Okay, so negative 1, 4, and then this parabola is opening down. So we got 3, 0, negative 5. This 3 is 0, 1, 3, 5 thing is not by accident, because you're increasing 1, then you're increasing by 4, then you're increasing by 8. Well, okay. So 1, so 3, 0, and then 5. So connect your dots. All right. So that is the last example for this lesson. So tomorrow you're going to get more practice with graphing, determining the axis of symmetry, the Y-intercept, and figuring out if it's opening up or down, etc. So I hope you enjoyed this lesson. Hope you guys have a great day.